Hello, I'm Tom, an assistant producer in the world of telly, and for as long as I can remember, I've been obsessed with knowing how TV is made, thanks to shows like Doctor Who Confidential and all the behind-the-scenes features on DVDs. One of my biggest passions is helping to make TV more accessible to those starting out in the industry, as for me, it seemed like a big scary world that was impossible to get into. Getting into TV aims to break down those barriers and deep dive into every single role that we can, from unscripted to scripted. Join me in each episode where I talk to a different TV professional about what they do, how they got there, what tips and tricks they can give you, plus some general TV chat. In this episode, I'm joined by my friend Eryn, who I actually went to university with at the University of South Wales. We did media production together, and I say it in the podcast, like, we just were them two people in uni that just basically did everything together. We were on the same path, and kind of just went down different routes eventually when we graduated. She works in production management within drama. I work within unscripted as an assistant producer on things like Crime Watch. So very different worlds, but we had a very similar path. So I just thought it would be really interesting to talk to her a little bit about what she does, about the roles within production management, but also a bit about the fact that, for instance, I got a job straight out of university and it took Eryn a few more years, but we delve into that and about the fact that maybe getting a job straight out of university isn't the be all and end all, and it's not the end of the world if you don't. So yeah, I really hope you enjoy this one. I really enjoyed recording this one, just chatting to Eryn a little bit about what she does and why we love what we're doing. So yeah, this is Getting Into TV. So thank you for joining me today, Eryn. As I said in my opening, we went to university together. And so if this podcast does go a bit off the rails, I'm totally blaming you because it is your fault. But I think what would be really good is, can you just start off by telling me a bit about what it is you do?
Yeah, so but at the moment I've just done a production coordinator job. But I think most of my jobs at the moment have been just secretary jobs. So that's like a step up from a runner, which is like the entry role into production. Yeah, and my job kind of entails basically managing the diary for the production, setting up meetings, helping out with outsourcing anything for the producers. It's really hard to explain because it's actually really like,
you do a lot. I mean, I've done one role. I did, like, in my time I've done various drama roles. One of my first drama roles was a production trainee in the office, and some of the stuff, like, there was a production trainee, who was me. You had a production secretary, production something. You had a travel coordinator, and you had a JPM, and we had a line producer. So, and all the stuff they were doing, they did loads.
Yeah.
They did loads of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it varies per production.
Oh yeah, definitely. Each job is completely different. Like, every single job I've done has been like a different thing. There are things that will always be the same. Like, especially like lower down as like a secretary, you're like, you are in charge of printing the call sheets and the scripts and stuff. But like,
I kind of found that really therapeutic when I did it. I really enjoyed printing the call sheets and the scripts.
It depends. It so depends, because I worked on, like, one of the jobs I worked on, like, it was just a blanket, like on sex ed, it was just a blanket watermark where we just could put please dispose of, or something. I can't actually remember the like wording we used, and that was so much easier because you just watermark it and then you like print out like 50 or whatever, how many you need for that day. But on industry, it was individually watermarked.
Oh, no.
It would take like nearly an hour, like the whole thing, just to even print it. And yeah, it was a
maybe it's not so therapeutic, but I enjoyed it.
Well,
the whole therapy of that I thought is completely gone with that thought. Anyway, we went to university together, like I said, and we both share, I feel like, the same thoughts on uni. Like, we went to uni and we did media production, and I feel like we had a great time. We lived together. We hated each other for a bit. we wouldn't do washing up and things, like, we just fall out. Like, I feel like just as friends do, and living together on the same course. And I feel like we both got such a passion for what we wanted to do. We were always kind of like, not the teacher's pets, but on certain certain things, like, 100%. We were absolutely at the front of the lesson being like, we want this job.
Yeah, we put our hands up first.
We were them sad people. I would hate me now.
No, I'm saying.
But what I want to know basically is, how well do you think it's uni basically set you up for a career. Personally, I appreciate the fact that I got to go to university and kind of move away from home and mess around and kind of like make mistakes a little bit with what and like hone my craft a little bit. But when I had my first day on professional set, I had no idea what a call sheet was. I had no idea what any of the lingo was really. So
Yeah.
how to use a radio. And okay, these are probably things that I could have gone and done like a work experience or something. I could have got a day's work at Bad Wolf or something and
Yeah.
picked up on this. But I do feel like there's a certain onus on like a course to kind of give you them basic understanding.
It's tricky because to me, I think that I wouldn't be where I am today without going to USW, going to uni, but not probably for the reasons you think. Because I started off, I went to a different uni before I went to USW. I went to Ravensbourne, and for like personal reasons, I just decided I wanted to move away. I wanted to do the independent thing where you like actually move out of your house and have that independence and be in a different city. And also because Cardiff is a great place for a fresh air.
It is. I'm just gonna put in here. I remember Eryn on my first day, in my first few weeks of university, and I thought we would never ever be friends. I just remember I was like, oh my god, she is so annoying. She's she's not my kind of person at all. And I was absolutely fucking wrong.
I lounge every night, baby.
She's now my neighbour. I can't get rid of her.
But I remember I knew quite early on exactly what I wanted to do, which I think, at least for our course, was just not a thing that a lot of people kind of had. Like, they didn't know
not early on, yeah.
No, not that early on. I think everyone kind of wanted the blanket of like, I want to be a director, but then I think that a lot of people just didn't know what they wanted to do, so they were kind of going it blind. They just knew they wanted to be in the industry. Whereas like I distinctly remember that I just really wanted to be in producing, be in production. So for me personally, my journey in that course, at least for my undergraduate course, learning the stuff that I did learn, I think it's more the transferable skills that helped me. I don't feel like that anything I learned from what I do day to day in production, I learned from my undergraduate at all. And I also don't think that there was any kind of space for them to teach anyone who wanted to do producing.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I feel like a lot of this isn't me bashing university at all, because I actually really enjoy university. I think it set me up in ways that I probably can't think of right now.
I think you learn more. The things I think that course gave me was the thinking on your feet, like those transferable skills in regards to how you deal with a day-to-day with a crew member or whatever. I think that's what I probably took from that. And then I also just think that it was just a good kind of stepping stone to get a look into the industry in regards to contacts.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. I feel like going to university, I feel like anyone listening to this is either at university or wants to go to university. Don't go to university thinking you're going to get a job because you went to university. Go to university and think, this is going to be one of them things that helps me get a job. Like, you've got to do so much more to get a job.
Yeah, it's
not that easy. No, it really not. Which brings me perfectly onto my next question. Basically, we both graduated at the same time. We started both in 2015. We worked on various projects together. At one point, I feel like we both wanted to do the exact same thing. We basically had, I feel like, the same idea of what we wanted to do. And personally, I feel like going to university has a lot of pressure of, if you don't get a job straight away, you failed, which I feel is so bad, because obviously I got a job straight away and you didn't. How did that, I feel like what's important for people listening is, how did you cope and how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
And obviously don't stop.
Well, for me, so literally just before we graduated, I got work experience at Bad Wolf. I did 2 weeks on the first season of Discovery Witches, and I generally thought that was going to be like oh my god, that's it.
I remember you coming back, we lived together at that time, and we were like, oh my god, I'm in. I am the bee's knees right now. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
I remember being because I used to get so excited and I come back, which was so funny because I remember that really dwindled by the end of the 2 weeks, and I was so done with it by the end of the 2 weeks, just because it's hard when you don't get paid and you're doing a runner's job. But I remember thinking that this is it. This is going to be the thing that's going to get me into the industry.
I'll try and work out what that was. Sorry, carry on.
I thought that was the thing that was going to get me into the industry, but it didn't. Unfortunately, you know, I mean, for whatever happened. And then I feel like it was like if I had hurdles. So like I had a situation where I got interviewed for another show that was starting up in Newport, and that was another one where I was like, this is it. And then I unfortunately didn't drive, so they were like, oh, like, we can't take you on.
I feel like part of the issue as well is kind of within the question of what I was saying is the fact that university is great, but it kind of creates a culture that makes you feel, because you were doing like loads of producer stuff, but someone was doing loads of directing things, it makes you feel like, and that's not a bad thing, it makes you feel, because I was the same, I was like, I can direct this, I can't direct the shit, but like it makes you feel like
gives you an ego.
It gives you an ego that you don't really know you have.
Yeah.
And I feel like that when you don't get that job straight away, that starts to kind of eat at you.
Yeah. Well, I remember on that job actually, on the work experiences, that someone said to me that they don't like taking people on from universities because the universities don't teach. Like they basically put these students on like pedestals, and then they come into the industry, and then you have to knock them down a few. Unfortunately,
you have to get rid of that ego, and you may not know you've got that ego, but you do.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, I think everyone's also got like a little. You've got to be confident to want to be in the industry anyway. But yeah, so it just didn't happen, and then I think I was doing a lot of like comparison with you, because as I said, we both wanting to go on the same path.
Yeah.
Which was really hard at first for me, but then I ended up working in an insurance company for like 3 years, and I nearly decided not to. I
remember you telling me that, and I was like, this is so sad.
Yeah.
Because I was like, we've done so much together. I was like, you can't not. It was so sad. Like, yeah. But how did it make you feel? But I suppose looking back, do you feel like going and doing something else had benefited?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's sorry, question.
Yeah.
I was like, no. No, 100%. I think my 3 years in that job role as a claims handler, because my job when I was in that insurance firm was basically to argue for a living. I'd have to get on the phone to people. I was a lot of admin stuff.
Being production, all I see my production managers do, they have to not argue, but they have to work their way around awkward situations and get the best possible outcome. So I can see how that helped.
Yeah, a lot of it was transferable. And then like I think for myself that a lot of people our age are just too scared to get on the phone, unfortunately. And I literally didn't have a chance to not be like that. Like it was either I'm gonna not answer the phone and pick up and cold call people, or I'm not going to have this job. So I kind of had to get over that fear quite quickly. So now I'm known now to be like good on the phone, it's a good trait to have.
I dread to be the other company on the end of the phone to you. That poor person, I don't know, like ordering stationery for your ordering station from, or whatever it is you're doing. I generally don't, because I've seen you angry.
I keep a calm head in work, I swear. But then after that, I think it was like COVID happened, and I just decided that like, so a couple of friends of ours ended up doing a production management masters that year, and it was like the first year they introduced it. And I wanted to do it, but I didn't want to be the first. I didn't want to be like the guinea pigs. So I was like, oh, well, I'll let them do it, see how it works for them. And then if it works for them, I'll do it. And then I think it was just a situation where like COVID was happening, and you kind of start reevaluating everything. And I was like, oh.
I remember around that time, around about COVID, because I'd just done Crime Watch, my first series on Crime Watch. And then nothing happened, and I got made redundant from my animation job. And I was like, I remember talking to you about I wanted to go and do a masters as well. And I feel like if had Crime Watch not come back to me for a second series, I would have done that course that you were on, which is a bit weird to think.
It's crazy.
But no, it is crazy how it just kind of like happens. How did you find doing the masters eventually?
I thoroughly enjoyed the masters.
Do you feel like that helped you more?
I learned a lot on that. That job, because it was a film masters, but you had pathways. So there was like a directing pathway, a DOP pathway, an editing pathway, and then a production management pathway. We only had 5 people on our pathway, so it meant that you had like this undivided attention with like the professors.
The professors.
I've been reading too much. So sorry. You have like undivided attention with the lecturers.
I just have visions of our old lecturers kind of dressed up and more kind of like in like Harry Potter robes. I mean, to be fair, our graduation was very similar to that.
Yeah.
Anyone listens to this wonders what a graduation is. It's so weird. Just get drunk beforehand like I did. Because the whole thing was so like Tudor, like Middle Ages. They were all in these weird robes and come down to this music. It was so strange. It was so bizarre. But yeah, sorry, I got off a tangent.
I do it all the time. But he's like a veteran in like the industry for production management, and he did stuff. Derry Griffiths, do you know? Yeah.
This is USW as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's USW, and he would bring in like all of his old production work from like working on I think it was The Bill he did. I think
oh my god, I love The Bill.
It was like like obviously all of the stuff now is digital. That's really stupid to say, but it was like everything was like on paper. So he'd bring in a couple episodes worth of production paperwork, and we were able to like look over it and stuff. And then you also like learn stuff that like, looking back, I think it doesn't help me particularly in my day-to-day job, but it's also good to have an understanding. But they taught us about movie magic, which is like basically like this like software that you use for like either budgeting, or you can use the schedule. Which the budgeting, if I carry on the path, I would want to say that I would use it because line producers have to use it. But with the scheduling one, that's more like a first AD's job. They're the ones that do that, and they're the ones that will schedule for the whole production on this software. But I think it's still really important to kind of get your head around that stuff, and like they gave us that. So I mean, there was still so much I didn't know. Like, don't get me wrong, there was still so much.
And I feel like even you don't have to go to university to know everything to get into the industry, and you don't have to. There's so many different ways to get into the industry, and I feel like obviously we didn't necessarily have we had an amazing time on our undergraduate course, but maybe didn't necessarily learn what we maybe wanted to learn.
Yeah.
But then obviously you went to do your masters and learn so much more, which eventually helped you, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it did. Because then I was trying to get in the industry while I was still on the course, so I did end up doing like just random daily work in any department that would take me. Basically, I did locations work. I did a lot of COVID. I mean, I did one day I covered a friend, and that was horrible because they didn't tell me I was covering 2 units. So I was running from one studio to the other, like, and I was just only one person. I was
just making sure everyone's wearing
I had one person to make sure, like a crew of combined of like over 100 people were wearing their masks. They gave me a stick as well.
Is it the 2 meter stick?
2 meter stick.
Oh my god, I remember that 2 meter stick.
I didn't use it. I was like, okay, thanks, and then I just promptly put it by my like.
It was such a weird role. Like, obviously, it was so important. But talking about you getting into the industry, you mentioned about dailies. I think what would be really good to mention is how did you get them dailies? Where did you kind of find them? And where could people go?
Well, my first, like, it's going to sound really bad but the 2 ones I did that weren't via like a traditional route were via friends.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want to point out though, in a few of my podcasts, we have mentioned the fact that nepotism is a thing, and between family, between friends, and it really shouldn't be. But I feel like because it just I suppose restricts a certain area of the world of the people that want to get into the industry. But I feel like it is slowly changing. But this is a way that people are getting in. And like you say,
because I had a friend who worked in my housemate who worked in the production office for the feature film Havoc, which is not out yet, and I did a week on locations on that. And then I did the COVID in Casualty, because my friend who I knew from uni, we both know Julia, she was on there all the time, and she just didn't want to do it all the time, so wherever she could get cover, she would. But then I guess the most helpful one, I think, that would help a lot of people listening, is that I did work experience again at Bad Wolf. This time on His Dark Material season 3 in the production office, partly because it was part of my course to do it, and also I had such a I don't know about you, well, I know this actually about you, that we both had this goal of where we wanted to work, and yours was BBC, mine was just Bad Wolf. I really wanted to work at Bad Wolf, regardless of what it was.
Yeah. No, so, I remember vividly one night we were planning, I think it was the start of our second year, and we were planning our final major project. And I remember just being in your room in that top bit with the skylight, and we were just chatting about all the shit we wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, I want to work at the BBC, I want to do this, and this. And I remember this conversation that we had. And I don't know why I remember this, but yeah, really random. But yeah, I feel it. How did you find going to Bad Wolf? Did that help you then?
Oh my God. Yeah, that was my foot in the door. So I ended up getting that via Screen Alliance Wales, and I knew the girls from Screen Alliance Wales previously, because obviously back in the 2017 doing the work experience. So it was only a week this time, and they changed the rules in regards to how you can actually do work experience. So originally, when I was doing work experience and I did 2 weeks, you were basically another runner. You were doing what the runners were doing, and you were helping out. But I think they kind of tightened up the regulations, and so it was more of a shadow placement.
So you were actually learning things.
Yeah, so I had to sit by people and watch what they were doing and stuff. So I was able to sit with pretty much everyone in the production office and kind of get a gauge of what they're doing. And one of the people that I sat with was the travel and comm coordinator, and she showed me a lot on what she was doing, and she was quite busy though, so a lot of the time I was just sat there just watching what she was doing or whatever. So I ended up kind of making a little bit of a contact there, and then I ended up talking to the runners on that, and I mentioned obviously that I wanted to get a job, and they mentioned,
please hire me.
Yeah, I was like, oh, just in case you ever need anyone.
Here's my CV.
And they mentioned that one of the COVID girls was going off or something, and they it happened so quickly. I remember we were stood outside the studio, and literally within a second, the runner calls over the COVID lady. I think her name was Bev, and they were like, Bev, come over here. And then they were like, oh, she needs work. And then it was like, okay, cool, come next week. And I was like, oh, okay.
But that is kind of how it happens, though. It's you kind of stumble upon it. And kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about friends working in the industry and getting jobs for people, there's nothing to be ashamed about that, though, because I feel like that, like you say, that is how a lot of people get work. And it doesn't necessarily need to be your friend, but I feel like one thing that is worth mentioning is anyone listening, and we said it before on the podcast, just watch shows and look at the credits and contact these people and just make them aware of who you are. Because like you say, that kind of, I suppose that's a very similar way. If you, obviously it was your friend and got you in, but it is that thing of just if people know you want to do something, you are more likely to get that chance.
Yeah, and I think there's I guess my advice probably with especially with work experience, I think it's so important. I always advocate for people to do work experience.
Basically, and going back to the uni thing as well, that's the one thing that I really appreciated about uni is I just basically said yes to everything, even if I had no clue what it was. The best way I can describe it, just pour yourself out. Just say yes.
I remember one that I said yes to, and I was like, I am wholly out of I am out of my depth here. They did a Welsh TV show in the atrium, and they asked me if I wanted to be a floor runner for the day. This is when we were still at uni. And it was a Welsh speaking crew. It was a Welsh speaking show, and I remember I was having to look after this radio presenter, Chris Needs, which unfortunately he's actually passed. He gave me his contact details, and I was like,
this is something.
But unfortunately he passed quite soon after that, and I remember they would be shouting at me, being like, "Can you do this?" And I wouldn't know, because I'd be like, "No, I'd just be like,
Okay, yes, maybe say yes to things, but within reason.
yeah."
If you can't speak a word of Welsh, don't do what Eryn did. Because
Well, I did say I could. I just said yes. Like, surely they're gonna speak some English, but no.
oh, I wish I was there that day.
It was so funny. Yeah, no, I think it's so important with work experience that, like, you know, when they like tell you in uni, you like, no, networking is so key. It is, but personally, I found that, I mean, this is going to be different for every single person, but my style of networking is just basically be everyone's mate. Be everyone's mate. Be that person that everyone thinks about, like, at the end of the job, and they're like, "Oh, that work experience girl, she was really nice."
Be nice for everyone, but even like, don't just be nice to the people above you or the people that your peers. I think it's really important. Like, I really pride myself on the fact that I'm always genuinely really nice to the runners and people below me, because it sounds really obvious, but you don't know, one day they might be hiring you. And like, but also just be a nice person. It's as simple as that. Be a nice person, and it will help you so much.
In the words of Harry Styles, treat people with kindness.
Jesus Christ. How long did we make? We made it 25 minutes.
I haven't got a Taylor Swift reference yet.
Oh dear, I've still got a few more questions.
We've gone on tangents, but to go back to the whole, my foot in the door was that I then did the 3 weeks of COVID marshalling on HDM, which was actually, it was really like good, because I was basically left to my own devices, and I got told to just wipe down any touch points. So I was going in every studio, I was going into every office, really cool. I was going into like the makeup trucks, the costume, like they had like a costume area, the prop store. I was just seeing it all.
Did you get the chance to talk to anyone?
Yeah. So I was able to chat away to people. I remember there was one time when they took us on vacation, and we were filming up in like this quarry. And like I started talking to the first AD, who, because they did this would be nightmare. I'm so glad I wasn't like major crew on this or like in production for it. They had 2 units going on, and every time one unit would cut, the other unit would go straight away. And they were like literally like on the same cliffside, like you could, and they had to be quiet when the it was ridiculous. So you didn't even have a moment to breathe in regards to like.
I can just imagine if you were doing something on that, just you running between the two. Yeah, I just have visions.
I remember that though. I remember I'm learning a skill in regards to like, I'm very cheeky sometimes in work. I'll have a joke and stuff, and I think that's very important, because these jobs can be so stressful.
You're with these people more than you are like friends, family, or anything. Like, we'll go months without seeing each other, because I might be busy for 3 months in crime, which you might be on a production, but still, you just need to be nice to these people.
Yeah. Well, I remember once I like turned around and I think it was the director had some like trash in his hand, and he was like, "Where can I take this?" And he didn't have a mask on, and I was like, "I will take your rubbish for you, but you have to put a mask on." And he was like, "Oh," he was like, "I see what you did there." But then I did that, and that was really good, because I just got to see everything without actually being a part of it at the same time. And then I followed a few people from that production, and then one day I
guess if I followed, you don't mean actually followed.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
I don't advocate stalking. When we say just see who these people are and talk to them, do not just go up to these people randomly in the street.
No, definitely not. Well, I just followed them on Instagram, and then and then one day one of them turned around and popped up in my DMs and was like, "Hey, about to coordinate for sex ed. Love for you to come on." Yeah, and then that's how I ended up as a production secretary on that. So.
Honestly, you are segueing me into my questions perfectly.
Am I?
You absolutely are. Because my next question was, can you talk to me a bit about the production office? What's basically the setup like? What roles are there? I know obviously your last job you were doing production coordinating. On what I believe, I'm pretty sure you said it was like a smaller indie kind of production. Compared, obviously, you've done a lot of work on like your bigger high-end TV stuff like industry and sex ed. So it'd be great to kind of just talk a little bit about the roles within the production office.
Yeah. Well, so you have I'm going to say this in the structure of if it was high-end TV, and like a higher band. So the bands are basically like, obviously you've got band 1, which is a lower budget, and it just keeps going up. in regards to like, I think Doctor Who's band 4, like it's ridiculous. I think we were band a high band 2 or lower band 3, but yeah. So in regards to that, then that you have the production runner, and their job is to basically, they'll anything kind of says it in the word, is they run around and get anything needed. So like we would have like lunch runs that need to happen. They would go, if when all of the deliveries would come in, like any post would come in, they'd go around to the department, get it over to them. If there was any kind of administrative backup that I might need, that I've been given and that I need to take off my hands and give to someone else, it would usually go to the runner. And then on the same sense of that, we had a trainee on that one, which she was doing like way more kind of more of the administrative side. So she would kind of be my right hand man, which is really funny because she's been a right hand man on every job since.
I'm pretty sure you saw her on day one and kind of just it's like a lost puppy. It was like, you're mine now.
But she anything that I was like kind of had too much to do, she would do. But she was in like her position in regards to her trainee, which was her role obviously is like she's kind of like a runner, but she gets the opportunity to learn about everything. So she was able to sit with everyone like multiple times a day and just talk to everyone and ask people questions.
Honestly, I think training roles are some of the most valuable things. I did obviously I did my production office trainee, and even though I didn't go to the production office, it was really good to kind of just be able to really sit down and chat to my line producer, who actually, he was an amazing line producer, and I learned so much just by chatting to him. I remember on my first day, actually, he was like, can you make me a cup of tea? And I was like, absolutely. And I brought him the cup of tea, and he was like, absolutely not. And I was like, oh my God. And he was laughing. He was like, I think he wanted to do this, because then he went and printed out a like 20, like basically it was images of different stages of tea, and he circled like number 10. And I was like, good. So every time I took it, he took a tea, I made a tea, I always had my little thing. But it's just that thing of being able to chat to these people and see that they are people.
Yeah, like no, don't put anyone on a pedestal, because the moment you do that, the moment like you're just not going to be able to talk to them and like ask them questions and stuff. But yeah, so and then I was production secretary on that, at least. I don't know why I'm going. I just feel like I'm going from sex ed because that's like the next thing we spoke about.
That's fine.
So we are production secretary, and my job, as I kind of previously kind of touched on, is that I would have dealt with the unit list, which is like a document that has everyone's contact details, everyone's emails, addresses, whatever. I was also on that job particularly. I was in charge of amendments, the script amendments, and boy, did we have loads of them on that job. It's ridiculous how many we had. We were in double colours because it's like, it was crazy. And my job would be then to print off. I could have, in a world, I could have probably actually given that to a runner to like go off and hand them out, but I really enjoyed doing that because like I was able to like skip away from my desk and be like, hi guys, I'm on set.
Did you go and have a look at all the cool things happening in the sex ed?
Oh my God, yeah, all the time. Yeah.
Am I right in thinking, just talking about sex ed and you going to do cool things, aren't you in the new series?
Yeah.
There's a little cameo of you. So anyone listening to this, please go and find Eryn. Just look at the picture on this podcast and you'll find her at some point.
I love that I've been on every single one of my shows now though.
Really?
Yeah, inadvertently in some way, yeah. They made a Twitter account for me on industry, so there's going to be tweets from me, and I didn't even know that was going to happen until the clearance email came through from script, and the script editor was like
I love that. I mean, actually, I've obviously been in like my fair share of crime reconstruction.
You have some amazing reconstruction.
We don't need to talk about my crime reconstructions. They like my series producer always just laughs at me. She's always like, oh, which one are we going to air of you this series? I'm like, we're not airing any, Michelle. But on the one I was a trainee on, the arts department, they needed to create like a virtual football world. And so they were getting surnames and stuff from people. So there's like a virtual bit in Jamie Johnson when they're all playing, and on the back you can see my surname.
No,
it's pretty cool. So that's me in that kids show. It's pretty cool. But I love that. I love that you can get to do things like that.
So good.
But going back to production office, so you were production secretary. What kind of other stuff would you do in that role then?
So I on that one at least, we didn't have a travel and a comm coordinator who would have dealt with the all the travel and a comm, I guess. That's what saying. That's self-explanatory. For the whole crew and cast, and like that job was quite manageable in regards to the travel and comm anyway, because we weren't really going anywhere outside of South Wales, so we didn't have to worry about putting anyone up or putting any like crew up. So part of that job was for me to book and give the information to the cast members, which was really cool for me because I was like having to message like Gillian Anderson or like Asa and be like, hey.
That's pretty
But
cool.
then with that was probably the only aspect of my job after work I would have to take home with me, because I would have to be in charge of like, if someone had any issues with their hotel room, they'll call me and be like, hi, like we can't check in or whatever, which is like I never really mind it, and that really taught me a lot about boundaries actually, because I was having to have a certain time of the day in the evening and be like, okay, well, I'm clocked off and now.
Do you feel like working in production, it's difficult? I suppose actually going into TV, learning boundaries is a really important thing, because it's so easy to take your work home with you.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm on Crime Watch, even though I'm doing like 12-hour days filming, but I'll still come home and all I can think about is Crime Watch, and I'll open up my laptop and start scripting something.
Yeah.
And it is that thing, and you can only learn it on the job, I suppose.
And I think it's really funny actually, because I was talking about this with my friend last night, because he was an AD, but he's recently just become the assistant for the creators of the last show we worked on in rap. And he was saying, we were talking about how like as an AD, as someone on set who works on set, you clock out at the end of the day and that's it. You don't take anything home. And like, yeah, you just in production, you just don't have that luxury. I'm not making it sound really great, but it is like,
no, but I think it's important. I think it's important for people to know like the reality.
Yeah.
So I mean, I feel like we both went into the industry being like, oh my god, it's so cool. We're gonna get champagne all the time. We're gonna go to all these events. And it's really not like that.
Nope.
Like more often than not, I'm stood in the middle of a field where a crime has happened with the rain pouring, and I can just feel the rain on my skin, and I'm like, what is my job? But like, I really enjoy it. It's like you say, it's really rewarding.
Yeah.
It's really rewarding.
Yeah, it's rewarding until an actor calls you 3 times when you're in the shower. And then you have to answer the phone in the shower because of that thing. The third call, it could stick you in like an emergency, and I'm like,
oh my god, I am 100% after this podcast. I'm asking you
I'll tell you
who that is.
But yeah, so when I did stuff like that, and then I'd also because I was really good at being on the phone, and actually that's the reason why my coordinator on that turned around and said that she wanted to hire me, and that she was happy to hire me a level above as an entry level, because it's not normal for someone to come in straight away as production secretary. You work your way up. But I didn't ever start as a runner in production, at least. And she said the reason why was because of the transferable skills I learned when I was in insurance. And so one of my jobs would be to call up suppliers and chase things, and she also went a step further and put a phone. And I've never known this to be a thing since. I thought it was the norm. I don't think it is, but we had a phone in the production office that was the production line, and everyone had the number on their on the bottom of their email for sign-offs.
Yeah.
So I'd be like answering the phone to people like that way, and it'd be like,
that's so strange.
Yeah, which the only time I went straight back into in like working in the insurance is I answered the phone once, and I was like, good afternoon, Eryn speaking. And I like said how can I help you? And I was like, and then everyone just looked at me, and I was like, what are they? Oh God.
What I love about that though is it just highlights the fact that even though you didn't get your job straight away, you were gaining skills that would eventually help you and make you, I suppose, progress quite quickly.
Yeah.
In regards to not having to do the lower roles for a long period of time. I'm stopping this because I only have this for 40 minutes, and then. So where were we? We were.
What I do as a production secretary.
So is there anything else on production secretary to say?
Not that it would be worth.
That's
I think
fine.
because there's just so much I could cover.
What should I go on to next? Should I go on to?
Do you want me to continue telling what like APOC and coordinator?
Yeah, that's fine. So so that's obviously the production secretary. What other roles do you have in the production office then?
So step up from production secretary is an APOC, assistant production coordinator, and they're kind of, again, it's like they basically are the right hand man to the coordinator. They'll help them with contracts, they'll help them with booking stuff. Sometimes they might be the one to send the call sheet. Sometimes they might be just the person to send distribution emails if the coordinator is too busy. And that's that kind of the base of what they do. And they'll anything they can't do, they've got an overflow, then they're getting the overflow then comes down to the secretary and kind of vice versa. It's like an overflow for the whole thing. And then you have the production coordinator who basically their whole job is to they will have all of this information that will come to them from every single HOG for everything that happens each day for prep or for wrap or whatever, and it's their job to coordinate. This is the name of the job is to coordinate that and get that out to who needs it, and basically they are the messenger. I feel like they're just the messenger of the whole like crew, so like they have to distribute everything and make sure everyone's got the right information and basically just make sure that the ship just continues going. So like, you know, making sure that, okay, we've got a read through coming up, right? We need to get this done. Okay, we've got a production meeting that's going to happen. Okay, we need to get this done, and like, you know, I can go on for ages. Like there's so many different like things that they will do, but they are majority, I think they are more like, I mean, at least on a bigger job, they're more someone they give out the work and kind of like will command if they were like basically they're like the captain of the ship, I'd say. Like at least in production, they're like the person who will give out the orders, will kind of stir the ship into the right direction. I don't know why I'm using like ship analogies.
I honestly
kind of happened.
I feel like it makes sense though, the amount of times that people talk about TV and ships and stuff, like it works. I get it. I feel like everyone listening will get it.
Yeah.
So that was production coordinator.
Yeah.
Where do we go from there? What other roles are there within the production office, production management?
So on a bigger show, you might have a travel and a com as well, which I think again that's quite self-explanatory, so I won't go into that. And that could be just more than one person as well. Like Bridgeton, I think they had like 4 people.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. As I have not worked on Bridgeton.
Yeah.
I just know someone who has. just not to like
name drop all these
claim that I worked on the show. And then you have a production manager who, if the coordinator is running the ship for production as a department, the production manager is doing it for the crew completely. They will outsource every crew member. They'll be the ones doing most of like the they'll like speak to everyone about their deals, about the rates that they're getting, you know, day-to-day running of the production, like as a whole, the whole crew. That's what their job is. They're like, imagine them as like, I always think of it when I tell people about this and like the outside world, that's something about the outside, like a normal job. I would always say that if a coordinator is someone who's the shift manager, and then the production manager is someone who is the store manager.
That makes sense.
And then anyone above that like is corporate.
I'd agree with all that from my own experience as well. That is a perfect analogy. So
yeah, that's what production manager does. And then you have
there's various other roles kind of
up there. Yeah.
And we kind of go, if you want to, I feel like if you want to learn more about them, you can go on things like screen skills and stuff. But I feel like as a whole, learn what you just said there about the production office. That's really I feel like you've said enough that I feel like anyone listening to this will have a good idea of what each role says.
Would want to say though that line producer is probably one as well too.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Yeah, line producer is the one just above the production manager, and they are in charge of the budget for the whole show. They are the big boss basically for the whole show, apart from an actual producer. Yeah. Like if the producer was the person who does creative, he does everything else.
Yeah.
And you work so closely with them in production because they are saying yes or no to every cost, and
Yeah.
we book a lot in production, so you have to always go to them. But yeah, that's
perfect. I feel like everything you said was it simplified it, and it made it. I personally, I mean, yeah, okay, I have an understanding of the production office and from different productions, but I feel like that's exactly what I would have loved to have heard coming out of uni, to kind of understand a little bit more about the individual roles. And it's not just a producer, it's not just the director, there are all these, there's like so many more people involved. What bits of advice, say to someone wanting to get into the industry now, having all your experience that you do at the ripe old age of
all right, let's not break my age.
I wasn't going to pronounce your age. She is not old. I don't know where I was going with that. So what I just thought as well is this is exactly, basically in university, me and Eryn did a radio show.
Oh my god!
This is basically Dragon Radio, but like so much better.
Loose students.
Oh my god, loose students.
Reunion of loose students.
2/3 of the money. We're good. Sorry. So yeah, so anyone wanting to get into the industry that's potentially maybe at university, or they may not be at university, they just know that a career in TV is what they want to do. What bits of advice would you give to them, knowing what you know now?
Work experience, man. Honestly, work experience is the thing. Is that me and you have obviously been completely different ways we've got in the industry. Like you ended up on the trainee skillship. I can't remember what it's called.
What originally back in 2018?
The screen skills.
Yeah, thing. I ended up on the screen skills trainee finder AD scheme thing, which
is great.
Yeah,
but that you have so many more people trying to go for that type of thing.
Yeah.
Than people just trying to get work experience.
Yeah.
Because people obviously you want to. Work experience is an extra step. I will say that it is an extra.
It's a really valuable step. I feel like, because during uni, like I said earlier, I just say yes to as many things as I could, because maybe it wasn't. I remember there was one thing and I said yes to it and I absolutely hated it. It was one of the worst days of work that I've ever done in my life.
Really.
But again, that even though I hated it, I was starting to even at an early stage of my career, I was starting to understand the different job roles, and I feel like you may not. Basically, I feel like the point that I'm trying to get at is every project you do, you may not necessarily enjoy that project. It's the same in a career, but whatever you're doing on that job, there's skills that you're gaining from it. You're going to learn constantly, and just say yes to as much work experience as possible.
Yeah, just get your name out there. Basically, that's the only way I can think of it. Because unfortunately, as we've touched on, nepotism is a big thing in regards to you have those things where they might post a job. There's I know that there's been situations in the past where jobs have been posted to the outer public to apply for, and they've already been filled. And it's
a shame that it's who you know, but that and I like to think that it is slowly changing.
I like to think it as well, but getting your name out there, and I think that is what you need to do. I think that having people remembering you, and then when someone turns around one day and will be like, oh, we need a runner for this one day and no one's available, who can we talk to, who can we find? Oh, I remember this person, they were really keen, they did this, that and the other. Let's give them a chance, because that's all it is. And I will always say, and I think we spoke about this the other day, that I will say that if you really, really want it, you will get in the industry. It might take you ages.
It's like what I keep saying. Basically, anyone listen, my boyfriend obviously works at school right now, but he really wants to get in the art department. And I'm really proud of him, because 9 months ago, he had nothing. And since then, he's had 2 weeks work experience in two very similar areas of production. He's gone to various events. He's made a CV. He's really put his name out there and started just talking to people and going to events. And even though he's not yet got a job, and it may not happen for a while, he knows that it will happen, and everything he's doing is correct.
Yeah.
It's just about, it may take months, it may take years, but it will happen.
Yeah.
What other bits of advice? That was only one.
There was only one, wasn't it?
I need two more.
Two more. Okay, my other one would be that with any job you're doing, regardless if it's in the industry, take those those skills, like transferable skills are so important. And like even if right now you're doing a job that you think that's not in the industry and you think that's not going to help you, it might. Honestly, I worked in Starbucks and me just talking and having to deal with aggravated customers.
I miss you working in Starbucks.
I'm not gonna lie. You got free drinks.
Free drinks, and then there was one day I went to dump my boyfriend and I went to Starbucks because I knew Eryn would be there, and I was like, if anything goes wrong, at least Eryn will be there to protect me.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be able to protect you. Oh God. But you have to deal with like agitated crew members, and that was a transferable skill, having to deal with agitated customers. So yeah, I think transferable skills is like very important. And then the other one, a bit of advice, which is very hypocritical of me because I've never taken it my own advice about this, but learn to drive.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have a car, it does not matter, because a lot of productions, especially when you're starting out in production, they won't expect you to have a car. At least the bigger productions, the high-end TV ones, will provide you with a hire car. So you just need a license, a clean license, a business insurance. If you have a car yourself, it's like really important. But yeah, learn to drive, because I've been on sheer luck.
The amount of conversations I've had with you about driving, and you're like, yeah, I've been to learn. I'm like, how many lessons have you had? Since I know you, how many lessons have you had since I know you?
Generally, I can count on my hands. Yeah.
But I've got one more question for you, and it's a really simple one, and I feel like it's a question that we basically everyone in TV loves watching telly. What have you been watching?
Oh, what have I been watching? Well, I did watch the Doctor Who.
Very good, right?
And I'm not a big fan of Doctor Who.
Currently, we are sitting in my living room, which is
my worst nightmare.
Yeah, it is basically, for anyone listening, the best way I can describe this is it's the inside of my mind, and my mind has Disney, and Doctor Who and Trainspotting. It's like there's figures everywhere. It's my haven.
I was pleasantly surprised with Doctor Who. And then I recently started watching a Netflix show called Bodies, which is really good. It's basically it starts out with 3 different people in 3 different time periods find a murder, and they're all trying to figure out the murderer at the same time, and it goes back and forth from like their timelines, and it's really good. I really recommend it. It's really
that's
good.
on Netflix.
That's on Netflix. Yeah, it's called Bodies. I think it's called. Yeah, I think it's.
I'll add it to my ever-growing list. Doing this podcast, I've got so many more recommendations. I'm like, how am I going to get to the end of all these? No, cool. Well, thank you for chatting.
Yeah.
I feel like I said, it's exactly the kind of thing that I wanted when I was wanting to get into the industry, and it just kind of. I suppose you're just what you said is, like I've already said, it is you just made it a bit more simple for people getting in, because it is scary. There's a lot of jobs out there that I had no clue existed. So yeah, cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Yes.
I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Like I said at the start, I was really excited for people to listen to this one, because even though we're talking a lot about production and the roles within production management, I think what's most important from this episode is the chat about the university and about the fact that it is beneficial, but also don't feel disheartened if you don't get a job straight away, because the skills that you're learning in other jobs in different industries are so beneficial to what you're doing now. Like Eryn said, even though she was in Admiral for a few years, she did actually find that the skills that she got there really benefited her as a production in production management. So yeah, don't think that getting a job straight out of university is a thing you have to do, otherwise you don't get a job in the industry, because that's totally not true. Next week I'll have a brand new episode. I've got 2 more episodes coming up before Christmas, and then I'll be on a break for about 3 weeks, and we've got a whole new series. I've got so many good ones planned. I am so excited to be talking to one of the SFX guys from Doctor Who, just to chat to him, because I think it's going to be such such an interesting conversation. But in the meantime, please feel free to share, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to check out Getting Into TV, both on podcasts, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you will stay up to date wherever you get your podcasts. See ya.